Alright, let's start with the reassembly here. So I got some new, these are Twincam brand, but they're the, they call, I believe, Torrington style bearings. So you can see in this bearing here, you see all the bearings are right up against each other, whereas the stock one, you can see has sort of like a cage in it. They're kind of back side by side. So new ones are better. And there's two sides of the bearings. There's like a rounded edge side and a flat side with words on it, with letters. This is the flat side is the side that faces out. The round side goes in. So put a little bit of oil on the outside of it so it slides in. And then once we get it in, I'll put some assembly lube on it. This is a special tool that will help press it in. The inside it has a little kind of like piece that kind of holds it. Oops. It's kind of a pain to get up in there. Okay. This is the same tool set that I use to pull. This is just another part of the tool. I also got it from Amazon. Once it's seated all the way, it becomes obvious because it won't go anymore. You don't want to crush it in there or ruin the bearing. I guess bearing failures are somewhat common. I've seen a lot of posts online of folks having to split the cases to go after the little needles if they fall apart. Not so much on the new ones, but the older ones when they fail. The little cage that's inside kind of comes apart and then all those little needles fall down into the engine case. Alright. I've seen folks install these using the old cam. So you take the old cam and then you just kind of hammer on it. You get it lined up and then you hammer on it to get it in, which I suppose would work as well. So you don't have to have the tool. All right, so I'm going to start working on the cam plate here actually. First thing I'm going to do is pull it apart and clean all the parts, and then kind of assemble it here on the bench before I try and go and put it in the bike. So the cam's shipped in a sort of wax paper. You can kind of see it on this one. The wax kind of transfers to it. It's all kind of on there. So you want to make sure you get that off, at the very least, off all the bearing surfaces. The surfaces that are going to ride either on the Pushrod or the lifters, or on the inner cam bearing, or in the cam plate races. You want to make sure that those surfaces are all nice and clean so that it doesn't destroy your cam plate, doesn't destroy your cams, doesn't destroy your bearings. I still have some stuff in the grooves here for the chains, so we clean those out. All right, this is where it starts to get messy, messy here. So you don't want to put any of this stuff away back together dry. So, we certainly don't want to use that. It's Loctite. Use some assembly lube. Make sure that you get it. You can use, there's no such thing as too little assembly lube. And the reason you use this is it's going to might be a little while before you start up. And you want to make sure that during the first startup, everything is lubricated. Otherwise, everything you've just done will be destroyed. We don't want to do that. All right, so we want to make sure that everything has a good amount of lube on it. This stuff is thick. Go. This will also help build oil pressure up front, or so I'm told. Try to get those guys straight lined up here. Okay. Alright, and this will go on to the cam plate. Now, Feuling doesn't want you to use any Loctite on their bolts. I think they want you to put lube on it. I should have used a little bit of lube on the on the fastener and on the flange head. I believe the orientation is that. I'm not going to tighten this all the way down. Actually, we'll do that one in the bike. I'm just a goofball, so I'm not, these aren't tightened, I'm just putting them in. Because there's like there's an alignment procedure once you get it in the bike. All right, some more assembly lube. Okay. All right. All right, 2 chains. Make sure these are clean. Alright, one of these is the gear side and the other one is just the back side of the front cam and the rear cam. And I need to find a spacer that is labeled .100. Here we go. That will go on the front. And so what I need to do now is load in my cams to the chain. I'm going to try and get these dots to line up together. I think I'm a tooth off. There we go. Lined up. Of course, more assembly lube. They go in from the back. Make sure they're still aligned. Okay, this guy will go on here. And then I should have a snap ring. All these guys have a snap ring. Okay. I think that might be as far as I need to go here. Oh, let's put the tensioner on the back here. This kit has hydraulic tensioners, so definitely an upgrade over the stock chain spring tensioners that we had. I believe this is the one that goes here. Yes. And this is the one that goes on the front. Yes. All right. This guy should have a couple of screws that go with it. This one requires Loctite. Everything's just really slippery. There we go. £120 inch. One's in. Pull the pin. All right, the back is done. Before we get too far back into reassembly here, I want to clean all these threads out using a tool called a thread chaser. So if you've never seen one before, it's kind of like a tap, but not quite as sharp. We're not trying to cut new threads, we're just trying to clean the threads out that are there. So any kind of residual Loctite, anything like that, that might be in there. That's what we're trying to clean out. Just make sure that when we go to put things back together, there's nothing in there that's going to bind or pull or give us a false torque rating. Just run these through. Sometimes they're not dirty and sometimes they're super crusty, like the ones on those the Tappet block covers. Those will be, there was a ton of Loctite in those and it was all somewhat corroded, so make sure that we get those all cleaned out. I'm going to do this before I start putting things back together because sometimes it can make a little bit of a mess. I'd rather not have to try and clean all this stuff up while I have my nice clean parts in there. Okay, you got all the face ones done. Now I got to do the Tappet block ones. These are the ones that are going to be really kind of gross because there was definitely a lot of stuff that was on them. Some of them were almost yummy. It's important not to power through. If you hit strong resistance like it's tightening up, That's probably as far as you want to go with it, because you for sure don't want to go all the way through and break through the casting or through the bottom end. That's a good way to ruin your case. And I like to go through, I'll clean them with some brake clean and then go through with like a Q-tip. Make sure that there's no liquid left down in the threads, because that's another thing that could happen too. You force a fastener down in when there's oil or cleaner or anything in there, and you go to torque it. When you torque it down, it'll blow out the inside, which again will ruin your case, which you for sure don't want to do. This one's a gummy one. Kind of see the dust that came out from that. It's all over the threads. Clean it off a little bit. Move on to the next one. Alright, I'm gonna finish these up. I'll bring you guys back when I get to the next step. Okay, I got all the threads cleaned out. I went through them with a Q-tip to make sure that wasn't any liquid left in there. Now it's time to lube everything up, get it ready to put the cam plate back in. So these are new O-rings I put in. This passage is closed. I'll show you on the cam plate. There's a set screw that you put in that will close it up on the cam plate. On the other models, like the non-touring models, there's an oil passage there. This one it's plugged up. So, but we still put the O-ring on it. Get this stuff all, the bearings. Whole thing, we just get them all lubed up. Okay, we get the cam plate. Let's lube up the actual cams. The chain. All right. This guy, see where the flats are. Somewhat trying to line the flats of the crank with the flats on the oil pump. There we go. Pretty close. Okay. All right. Jumps all aligned. Get bolts. These are new bolts. Came with the kit. Alright, so I'm not tightening these, I'm just kind of getting them in. Alright, got the plate all put on. Went through the whole process of you torque the bolts to 10 foot-pounds. Really torque them, you kind of finger tight them in. Rotate the engine over 5 times. Torque them down to 90 to 120 foot-pound or inch-pounds. Did all that. Similar for the oil pump. There's a similar process that's a little bit more drawn out for that as well. So I got that all buttoned up. I got the 2 sprockets on here. Used a flat edge to make sure that there's a shim that goes behind the big sprocket here. You know, I put the shim on it and made sure that they lined up appropriately. And now we're in the torque sequence. Specifications calls for red Loctite on these bolts, and then 15 foot-pounds. We torque them down, and then we loosen them up, and then we torque them to the final spec, which I think is 24. I'll have to look before I totally torque them down, but just a little red on that. The bottom sprocket here was a little tight from just a little tight. Had to kind of persuade it on there. And then I've got this lock tool that'll lock them in so I can get them torqued. Alright, and it says back off 1 full rotation. And the final torque Bottom one goes to 24 foot-pounds, and that top one goes to 34 foot-pounds. 24. An extension so I can reach it. And 34. Hi.
Madam's wondering, if...
Alright, now it's time for the tensioner. Check the torque spec on that. Alright, been quite a bit of work since the last time I was recording. I apologize. I went forward without you guys. So, while I had the camera off, I went ahead and got all the sprockets on, got them all torqued down. So everything's covered with why can't my brain work today? Covered with assembly lube, and we're at reassembly here. So I've even gone so far as to I had the lifters soaked in oil. They were soaked in oil for a couple days before I got them put in there, and then I used a oil can to kind of make sure I forced oil into them. And now I'm working on cleaning up these Pushrod tubes. So the kit came with adjustable push rods, but because I pulled the top end apart on this, I'll go ahead and just reuse the solid push rods. I'm gonna clean these tubes up and put some new O-rings. You replace the O-rings that are in them, but get these kind of polished up the best that I can. And clean them up so that they're all nice and clean and ready to be reassembled. So there's a couple different parts to it. There's these little O-rings. It's a little crusty. We'll replace that with a new one. Spring and this, and I'm just going to clean these all up and put them together. I also got new Tappet blocks, the original ones that were on there. There's the chrome started peeling on the inside, which isn't great, right? And you can get a new set for 30 bucks maybe. You can see it there, it's peeling on the inside. And then I also got a new cam chest cover. Another eBay special. The cam chest cover that I had on the bike, chrome was starting to peel on that too. So you can find them used on eBay. Sometimes you can get them for less than 50. Usually around 70 bucks you can get them. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting this one back together here. Oops, that cleaned off. these parts of the bike often are really kind of hard to clean. So a bit of quad-aught steel wool for the particular difficult parts. They're hard to clean off. This quad-aught only works on chromed metal. Don't use it on any painted part, and don't use it on anything that's plastic. Alright, so plastic, chrome, that kind of stuff is not great. Okay, that's one. Alright, Pushrod tubes are all nice and clean. Oops. So why laying things out is super helpful. It becomes obvious when you've forgotten something. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4 dead O-rings. Put those in the trash. And then these will be for the upper, so these go up into the head. And then these will go down into the tappet blocks. We get those on there. So let's go over and work on that now. Alright, before I put these tappet blocks in there, I want to make sure that there's no liquid down in these holes. And I did this the other day, but I've also put these new Pushrod, or the new lifters in. Oh, see, that one had some gunk in it. I want to make sure that there's no liquid down in the hole there. Remember, I already went through and used the thread chaser in all of these. Okay. These are clean. You can see my lifters are in there, and I've already got that lifter kind of like a catch. It's like an alignment dowel. Make sure that the lifters are pointing the right way to receive their oil. And we've got our gasket. Yep. And our new block. And then I went through on each of these bolts and cleaned up the threads on them. I put a little bit of blue Loctite on the tip. It's a little cold in here, so my Loctite's a little gummy. There you go. Alright, now these get torqued to 90 to 120 inch pounds. I usually start on the low end, the 90, and then I'll go back with the higher. You certainly don't want to pull threads on the block here. They're not easily fixed. You could helicoil it or maybe use a time cert. Not interested in doing that today, so I'll take my time and get them in there.
kind of doing these in a cross pattern. I don't know if you have to, but I kind of want it to go down nice and even on that gasket so the gasket doesn't leak. Now, I never had any oil in my bypass here, my breather bypass, or my breather vent, as it were. But we'll see once I get this new oil pump is going. We'll kind of see how it behaves. Alright, so I got the first one in. It was much easier without the air cleaner in the way. So let's do the second one here. Okay. Let's go. Alright, all four of them in there. Okay, push rod tubes are in. Go ahead and put in the push rods. So the exhaust push rod is just a little bit longer than the intake. Down there. These other ones too. Just so you know. Of course, the exhaust is on the exhaust side and the intake is on the intake side. There we go. All right, now I'm going to clean up the bolts for the cam cover. Let me do that real quick. I'll be right back. All right. Before I go too far, I want to try and rebuild these breathers. I think this is an older style breather because I've had a couple other bikes where they don't. Or maybe this is the newer style. I'm not sure because the other twin cams I'm open were all older bikes, but it came off pretty clean. I'm trying to take off this old gasket without scratching the shit out of the part here. This is I got a Cometic top and gasket kit. Came with new breathers or breather gaskets and umbrella valves. So we already got these off. So let's go ahead and take care of that too. All right, pull this umbrella valve off, this old one. Install the new one. Okay. New gaskets. Little oil catcher, so it catches the oil so that crankcase pressure comes up through. This will catch the oil and the pressure comes out and then goes down into the breathers. Okay, so clean the threads up on the bolts, and I went through and thread chased all the holes. Got a little bit of Loctite on the bolts, into the bolts. Get them all kind of finger tight here. And you'll see the pedestal is not all the way flat. It's even though we have the rear cylinders on overlap, and these are down as far as they'll go, you'll see that the pedestal is still kind of up. That's because the lifters are full. We got to get them kind of bled down. So what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll kind of start getting things torqued, but not as tight as they're supposed to go, just kind of down. And we'll let them kind of bleed off, and then we'll tighten it up a little bit more and let it bleed off until we can get the pedestal all the way flat, and then torque it to the proper spec. So let me get these guys tightened down here. Just so it feels a little tight. We'll let that sit for a couple minutes. All right, so let's have a little bit of time to bleed out. See if I can get it down here. So, oops, a little bit further. Yeah. 18. Then I use on the other side, I use a torque adapter, which is kind of a funny little tool here, but in spots where I can't fit my torque wrench, I'll use the torque adapter 90 degrees on the head, and it will help me get into spots that you can't normally reach. And get things torqued down so they can a little gun shy about these two. All right, let's go up to 20. All right, now it's time for the breathers. Can't quite get on that one. All right, it's time to put the cam cover back on. All right. This is a new used cam cover. I think we talked about that earlier, but my original one was starting to corrode and the chrome was chipping on it, so found a new one, new used one on eBay. Oops. I'll use that. Put some of these. I cleaned some of these bolts. Got some that have nice heads that have nice square or nice hex drive sets on them, and then some that are a little damaged. I'll put the ones that are damaged kind of at the bottom so you don't see them. I thought about maybe getting some chrome ones, but you know, 10 bolts at $6 a piece doesn't seem like a pretty good deal, at least at my local shop. My local hardware store has chrome bolts that I've bought before, and then nothing would match. I'd have to buy the 10 for the cam cover, and then the 8 for the tappets, and then the 6 for the transmission, and then another, was it 5 for the transmission top? It'd be expensive, so decided to clean up the ones that came with it. All right, so now I got them all kind of in there. There's a torque sequence to them that you're supposed to follow. I have the printout here, and it says 125 to 155 inch-pounds. I'm going to start at 90 and then I'll kind of creep up on it. Alright. Now I just need to put the top of the rocker boxes on and put on the exhaust, and then should be ready for a first fire. The rocker box gasket looks like this. It can go on either way, but you don't want to do that because there's a contour of the bottom part of it that this needs to match. And if you put it on upside down, you'll end up with an oil leak. Ask me how I know. That was an exciting ride to the gas station. Alright, put some bolts in here. Actually, I'm going to clean this off just a little bit more. Get the bolts set up here. Not perfect, but it's not covered in dirt. Finagle this in. Gasket on it first. Some of these bolts is kind of a pain to get up under the frame. That's why I'm trying to put this all in there while it's all together. There we go. Get these all kind of finger tight. Alright, let's see. See if she runs.
Now we just need to wait for spring. This is what we're dealing with right now. But we got her all squared away. Now I just gotta clean her up, get her ready. Sweet.